everyone, my name is Elizabeth, this is Frizzy Lizzie Stitches, and today I am bringing you an updated Notion tour video. Hello everyone, today is, I believe, November the 30th, 2024, and it seems to be a pattern of mine 3 years now that I decide this is a great time to show you my updated Notion. So if you're new here, hello, my name is Elizabeth. This is a channel where I mostly talk about cross stitch, but I also like to sprinkle in a bunch of my other hobbies and interests. And this particular video is one of my organizational interests, which is using Notion to track all things related to anything I do cross stitch. So that includes everything from keeping track of projects to how many stitches I have stitched, what floss I have in my stash. I've started dabbling in using it to also track my fabric stash, but that's still kind of in beta testing, if you will. But yeah, so I have a ton of stuff to share with you about my Notion. 3 years ago when I first shared my Notion, it's really honestly funny to look at now because it was very basic, bare bones. I had just gotten into it, and so I didn't really know how to use everything to its full potential. And there's definitely some stuff that I probably am still not using to its full potential, but that's just because Notion is so vast and there's so much you can do with it. But also it's like not so overwhelming where you can't not use it for just simple things. I just happen to like making it more complicated for myself. So anyway, my plan here is to show you what my Notion looks like, and how I use it, and also I copied a template that's a variation of my current Notion that you can download to use if you are interested. And I think that's kind of the gist of it. I will say that this is very detailed, so I guess don't get scared. Notion it can be intimidating, not gonna lie, but don't let that dissuade you from trying it out. If this seems too complicated, then you can look at one of my other 2 Notion videos because those are very much less intense than what I'm going to show you today. So I'm gonna try to keep it clear and concise. Try not to ramble too much. I know this video probably will be closer to an hour, but that's what I got for you. So I'm gonna open my laptop now and try to get it set up so that we can do a little screen recording and I can show you basically where I live when I'm not actively stitching. All right, I believe that we are running. So you should be seeing my kind of landing page / homepage, whatever you want to call it. This is kind of where I mainly hang out when I am logging in to look at my Notion. I guess I should say first that you can access Notion from the computer. You can also download an app for your mobile device, whether it be an iPad or iPhone or non-Apple versions of those products. I guess tablet and smartphone would be the more proper way to say that. But anyway, I prefer to use it on the computer just because you can really access everything that Notion has to offer. It's a little harder to edit, in my opinion, on iPad and iPhone or on the mobile apps, but I just like to look at it on the computer and make my edits from there. So with that set aside, this is my landing page. So the very first thing I have on here is a button that says new stitch log, and it has a little square there because my computer is really old and it is not updated, but it is the little needle emoji with the thread. So anyway, if I were to click on this, it will create a brand new entry for my stitching database, or I'm sorry, my stitching tracker, which I'll get into. So I just like to have that at the very top so it's very easy for me in my day-to-day life when I'm stitching to just click that button, and then I can add in an entry with the date and the project and how many stitches I did, and add a little progress photo. So I'm actually going to delete this page because I do not need an added entry right now. But I'm gonna try to keep this portion a little bit high level because I don't want to get too in the weeds too fast. So essentially I have that button. First thing, super easy. Another thing that I like to have quick, easy access to is all the databases that are basically running the show here. So I have my cross stitch projects, which is all of my cross stitch projects. I also have one for crochet and knitting, which is built pretty much the same as my cross stitch projects. It just has way less fields to fill out. And frankly, I don't use it as religiously as I use the cross stitch projects one. So I'm not even gonna go through that one with you today. Also because this particular video is geared towards cross stitch. So I'm gonna try to keep it mainly on the cross stitch and not any other stuff. The next database in here is the stitching tracker, which is where when you click that button, that's where it adds a new line onto that database. And then the next three are about stash. So I have a database for all of the DMC that I have, and it also helps me know how much I have of each floss and where I have it in my stash, whether it's in my main set or if it's like in a project or if it's in my like rollover stash. And then I also have a database for fancy floss, which I have connected to the DMC database, which I will get into later. And then I also have this fabric stash database, which is it is still definitely something that I am playing around with. I'm not like fully using that one, but it is something that I think would be beneficial if I were to put more effort into building it out. So on the right here, I have another thing that I like to easily access, which are my current stitching goals. And I also have like the number showing how many stitches I have left to meet my goal. And then I also have some quick, easy things to see, like what I have my goal set to, the total percentage of the project, and the status, which I will get into when I open the cross stitch projects, as well as where this goal stitching number comes from. But I like seeing this because this lets me know which projects I'm actively working on and how many stitches I intend to put towards those projects. Usually this is like I set this up to be like what I want to complete in a month. And then at the end of the month, I will edit everything so that I have a new set of goals to go off of. Since December is literally tomorrow, I have gone ahead and changed this. So some of these are still November goals, but they're also my December. Wait, did I say? A lot of these are still my November goals, but they're also my December goals. So really it's just for the rest of 2024. So right underneath there, I have a few more things that are nice to have. So I have these two widgets over here, which highlight how many whips I have and how many. I haven't really used this yet because I haven't been able to test it out, but I've added another one called Starts Earned. As I guess like a side tangent, this year I have stitched a bunch of small projects where I started and finished them this year. And even though that's great because it looks like I did so much, because I did, I also have not been putting a lot of progress towards my larger projects. So my idea is to kind of, when I finish X number of things, then I could, so like if I finished 3 things, then I would have earned 1 start. And so I can have that going on the side as like, okay, like this is how much you've earned up in your, like, I can start this bank. That's kind of the thought behind it. Like I said, I really haven't used it, so I don't know if that is gonna work for me or not, but I do like having the whip count here. This is something I manually change. It does not connect to the databases in any way. So I just know that I have this many based on what my database says. And so I just knock that up or down depending on, you know, if I've started or finished anything recently. So in the middle here, I have kind of like, I mean, it's not a planning tool if you can't just have a place to write down a checklist. So that's what this is for. I have mine broken down into this week, this month, and next month, just to help me kind of organize my to-do list. so I don't feel pressured by having this really long laundry list of things to do. This just makes it a little bit more bite-sized and manageable for my brain to handle. But typically I will just check it off as I complete it, and if there's a bunch of stuff checked off, I'll just delete it from the list, just like you would any digital checklist. Over here on the side, I have a little list of different notes that are not necessarily databases, but still stuff that I want easy access to. So I have my floss tube notes. I have this little Stitchy Calculator tool, which I'll talk about later because I did include that on the template. And then I have some other notes about, like, you know, Instagram captions, random stitchy ideas that I have, some pattern ideas and color conversion ideas that I have. So I just kind of keep all of that on the side just for fun. And then I have a few cute little pictures in here just to make things fun to look at. On either side of, like, where it says charts and graphs, I have my active whips. So on the left are all of my active cross stitch whips, and on the right are all of my active knitting whips. The projects that are showing here on the left are the same ones that are showing at the very top with the different stitch goal numbers, and these numbers right here are also the stitch goal numbers. And then in the center of this beautiful landing page, I have some nerdy charts. I do have this note page, which goes into a little bit more detail. I like to kind of play around with the numbers every once in a while just to kind of see what how I can manipulate the data to, you know, show me give me a visual of what I have logged, basically. So I have 2 bar charts that I used Chartbase to make. This first one is stitches in the last 7 days. So you can see that I've stitched 304 stitches today. Yesterday, I stitched over 1,000 stitches, which is wild. It is the weekend after Thanksgiving, so a lot more time on my hands. But yeah, and then this chart on the bottom is stitches per month for the last 6 months. There's a lot of data that Chartbase has to pull to make this graph. So you can see here it says that this hasn't been updated in 6 days. I can click this refresh button. It'll take a while, and there's no need for me to do that at this very moment, but it is like a little bit more manual in the sense that you kind of have to actually check to see if it has loaded all of your data. But inside the Stitchy data views, actually I'll go in there really fast. Notion has charts. If you pay for Notion, you can make as many charts as you want. I do not pay for Notion because I don't want another monthly subscription. So I have this one chart that it allows me to have. And so I just kind of change the chart whenever I want to look at something different. You can save the chart as an image. So in future floss tubes, I am maybe looking into like getting a chart made for what I stitched on in between the last floss tube and the current floss tube, and then just saving that as an image so that I can use it in my video. But that's something that I didn't think about until like after I posted my last floss tube. So anyway, but I like to keep this one on stitches for the year, which I'll go through how to do charts at a later point, but you can see here that I've stitched almost 80,000 stitches this year, and it does break it down by like what projects and how many stitches per project. And then I have this chart repeated and then a few other things at the bottom. But like I said, I don't want to get too far into it so fast. All right, so underneath all of the charts, if you keep scrolling down, I just have another running checklist section. I have projects that I want to do that aren't necessarily cross-stitch related. Most of these are knitting and crochet. This middle column is where I like to kind of keep a tally of what projects I need to photograph and then which projects I need to post about on my Instagram. And then this right one is whips that I haven't posted at all in 2024. So I have a couple on here that I still need to post about. Whether or not I've started it is kind of differing between what's on here. But anyway, underneath that I have this is like a view of my cross stitch projects database, where it specifically is showing me all the different numbers that I have in there for different stitching, like how many stitches are left on each of these projects. So I can kind of plan to say, okay, I want to get this project to 50%. How many stitches would that be? This is kind of the view that I can look at that to determine that. I also have it where, you know, I can have it grouped by the goal. So like all the projects that I want to get to 25%, how many stitches would that be, etc. And then I have this last one, which is how many stitches it would take to just flat out finish the project. So there's that. And then I have this other section called 2024 plans, which I will eventually switch to 2025 plans. But essentially I have a tab of projects I want to start, which I actually did start Candy Claws. So I'm going to uncheck this. So I just have one more project I want to start this year. And then under want to finish, I have 4 projects that I want to finish. This one I haven't started yet, but the other 3 I have. So hopefully I will get them finished in the next month. And then I have like just a link of all of the projects I have, so I can select whether or not I want it to be a start or finish without having to go all the way back to my cross stitch projects database. And then this is just like a little drop down where I inserted like a screenshot from Excel because I was being extra nerdy with like how many stitches I can do in a month and like trying to be realistic with what goals I set. But that's mainly just a notes thing. It's not connected to anything in this Notion. And then at the very bottom here, I won't really go into this on later or at all, but this is kind of like what I'm trying to do for my goals next year. And because I really like WhipGo, but 25 goals is just kind of a lot for me. So I decided to do a Sweet 16, make 16 goals. So these are kind of my 16 goals for the year, and I am playing around with how I'm going to track that. All with the beauty of these are all from the same databases, and it's just like different views and different relations between all the databases. So there's lots of stuff you can do to play around with your information, and this is just an example of that. So, but like I said, we won't get too far into it or really into this part of it at all because we would be here forever if I did. All right, so I'm gonna get into the cross stitch projects database. What we've all been waiting for. So this is I guess we'll go to this tab first. This is my main database for all of my cross stitch projects, and it's the same database that you've seen in my other 2 Notion videos. I have just kept adding different fields depending on things that I want to track and information that I want to keep tabs on or just have a visual on. So this is just like all of them listed out in a typical table format, but I am going to open just one of these to kind of show you what a project card looks like, and I will make this full screen. Okay, so this is a whip that I started yesterday. It's a Satsuma Street Christmas ornament. I'll show you the picture. There we go. So this is Candy Claws by Satsuma Street, and so the project card for this, I have the name of the project and the designer. I chose a little emoji, and I used the chart cover photo as the like the banner for the page. I also added the cover photo as a what do they call these? Property? I think that's what they call these, properties. And then I have several others. Some of them are excessive and not necessary, and if you think that you don't need it, you can delete it. But for me, there's definitely stuff in here that I will add and then realize it doesn't work for me and I'll get rid of it later. But for the most part, I've got some basic information in here, like what the stitch count is, size-wise, and how, what kind of size project I think it is. This is purely arbitrary. If whatever a small project is to me might not be a small project to you. So take that with a grain of salt, I guess. And then I have a space where I can add in what fabric or floss I used if it was something custom. Typically I only type in the fabric here. I'll only type in the floss if I did something different or special. This is a relation to the fabric database, which I'll talk about later. start date, finish date. Whenever I'm finished with this project, I will add a photo for the finish. I've got percent complete, which is pulling from my stitching tracker. Days worked on is also pulling from my stitching tracker, as is the progress, which is the number of stitches I have stitched so far. The total number is a number that I enter in based on the chart that I have created this page for. And then all these other numbers are kind of like they're formulas. So the 100% countdown is basically just taking the total and subtracting the progress and telling me what's left. And then for the 75, 50, and 25%, those are all formulas where it basically is multiplying 25, 50, or 75% of the total and then subtracting the progress to tell me how many stitches I have left to get to 25%, how many stitches I need to get to 50%, etc. And then I also have a couple of custom goal fields. So if I don't want to, say if I want to get to 30%, then I could type in 30 in this custom percent field, and then it would show me how many stitches that would be. Same for the custom stitch goal. If I have stitched, so for this instance, I have stitched 715 stitches. If I wanted to get this, if I wanted to stitch 1,000 stitches, then I would type in 1,715. If I wanted to just get this to 1,000 stitches, then I would just type in 1,000. And then this field is choosing the goal for what stitches I want to complete, whether that be 175, 50, or 25, or one of the custom numbers that I just talked about. And then whatever I select here, it will pop up in this goal stitches column. So right now I have it set to 100%, so it's going to feed me this number right here. If I wanted to get this to 50%, then all I would have to do is change this to 50. And now it's going to show that my goal stitches is 38 stitches. If let's see, so currently this project is at 47.48%. So if I wanted to get this to 60%, then I could type in this custom percent, I could type 60, and then I could change my current goal to the custom percent, and then it would show me that I need to get 189 stitches to get this project to 60%. So that is kind of where the bulk of my planning comes from, is figuring out what is reasonable based on the actual number of stitches that is required to meet that goal. And also I'm just really nerdy with numbers, so that part of it just makes me really excited. But I'm gonna switch this back to 100% because this is a small project and there's no reason to let it lay around for too long. Further down here, I have a notes field. I can just add anything I want. I have some tags. This one has a few. I don't really use this field too often, but it is nice to have if I ever want to group things. That comes in handy later when I'm going to show you how to create a linked view of a database, because you can filter by all these different things. And so if I want to see all my Christmas charts, as long as I have tagged that it is Christmas, it will show up in that search. Same reason that this flag checkbox is here. If I wanted, this was kind of another experiment where I just wanted to see a certain grouping of projects that didn't necessarily have anything related to them. And so I just used this flag box as the filtering criteria. I also have a field to just note to myself whether or not I've saved this in Pattern Keeper. I actually have put this one in Pattern Keeper, so I will check that off. And then this is the start and finish this year fields that we kind of already looked at a minute ago. Let's see. And then at the very bottom here, I have a bunch of more database relations. So I could actually type in the different DMC used in this project, which I can kind of sample this for you. So I know 666 is in here, the super bright red. So I can just type in the floss number and then click this little plus sign. And now that color is linked to this project. Let's add a couple more. I know 956 is in here as well. It's a super bright pink. And so I can just add I can add all the flosses that are called for. I can also add fancy floss. So we'll go into that as well. But I have all of the Wix Dye Works, Classic Colorworks, and Gentle Art Sampler threads loaded into my fancy floss database. So I can also note what fancy flosses are called for. I also have, this is the stitching tracker, so I've only worked on this for 2 days, which you can see here. And then I just have Floss 2 video and color conversion, which is kind of another thing that I was playing around with, and I'm not going to get into it today, but just an example of how many different databases you can relate to each other to help you accomplish whatever you're wanting to view or look at. So, and then in the bottom of the project card is where you can put more information. So I created this views of progress in DMC. So if I click on this, it'll take a minute to load all the stuff, but it's going to show me all of my progress photos from when I worked on it, which you can see here. So it's showing me the date and how many stitches I did, and then a little snippet of my photo. And then you can see here for DMC collection, it's showing me swatches of the DMCs that are called for. And then it would do the same thing if I had added a fancy floss. And that's pretty much it for kind of what one project card looks like. All right, so we're back on the database page. This is a view that I really haven't used very much since I added that little, goal tracker on the very front of my homepage. But this is just, it puts my projects into different columns. So if I wanted to, make positivity lifts and active whip, I could just click and drag this over, or I could drag it back. And that will change the status that it's at. Which I think that was one thing that I did not talk about just now when I had that project page open, is the status. So you can kind of see them on the side listed here, but I have wishes, which are patterns that I do not own but would like to own or like to stitch. Pattern stash, which is patterns that I do have. Kit, which stands for kit in progress, which means I'm in the process of kitting that up. Full kit is ready to start. And then from there, it would become like a whip. So I have active whip, up next whip, and passive whip, up next whip, and active whip. So active means I'm currently working on it. Up next means that I plan to work on that next. And then passive whip means it's not done, but I'm not working on it right now. It's just kind of in my whip pile. And then I also have finish, FFO, which is fully finished object. I have a UFO for now, which is an unfinished, or UFOFN, which is unfinished object for now. A UFO, which is just unfinished object. And then NA is just for some special stuff that I really don't use anymore. The difference between UFO for now and UFO is UFO means I really have no intention of ever finishing that project. And then UFO for now means that I'm not gonna be working on it in the foreseeable future, but I might come back to it. So as you can see, I only have 3 UFO for nows and 2 UFOs. So they're really not that many projects, but I do like keeping them separated just because that's what I like to do. So this whips tab just shows me all the project cards. So you can see it's still organized by active whip, up next whip, and passive whip, but I can see all the little cards of what the projects are supposed to look like, and then some other information about them, like the designer, when I started it, how big the project is, and how far along I am stitching the project. This is where I can see projects that I've started, and I have this organized by the year. So I have started 18 things in 2024. That's crazy. In comparison, last year I started 13 things. So you can see that I've started quite a bit of projects. But on the flip side, for my finishes, I have also finished quite a lot of things. I have finished 16 things. Which you can see here, and it's actually showing the finished image, whereas on the starts tab it was showing the cover photo for the project. And so I have it all separated out by year. So this goes back all the way to 2021, because I started stitching at the end of 2020. So actually you can see Awesome Myth behind me right here. But anyway, so that's the finishes tab. And then I have stash, which is basically everything that is not a whip, start, or finish. So these are full kits, these are kits in progress, these are pattern stash and wishes. So quite a lot of projects. And then this project, or I'm sorry, this tab is showing me my current whips and how they break down by year. So 2 of my whips are from 2021, 5 of my whips are from 2023, and then 4 of my whips are from 2024. So that's just kind of a nice thing, a nice visual. I know these 2 projects have been around for a long time, so I might want to put some more work into them, that sort of thing. And then I just have another view that is simply for searching purposes, so we won't go over that one. All right, so next we're going to jump into the stitching tracker. So as I showed you earlier, that button at the very top of my landing page lets me create a new entry. But if I wanted to, there's other ways I can create new entries. So if I'm actually in this page, I can just click this blue new button. And then I also could just go to this specific day and click the little plus sign. And that's another way you can add an entry. But this first view that's on here is a calendar view, so you can see which projects I've worked on which days, and it also shows whether or not it was a whip or a new start or a finish, and how many stitches I did. This all is just like a basic table, so if I need to search for things, this is kind of a good place to go. Gallery just shows me the progress photos of all the things I've worked on lately. And then this month's whips just gives me a breakdown of how many, or it categorizes this by the project, and I have it filtered to this month. So it's going to show me stuff for November. And this is just another way to view the data that I've been collecting. I don't really hang out in this database very much, but it's obviously necessary so that I have a place to store all the information I'm collecting by adding all of my stitch logs. So there's really not too much to say about this one. It does have a relation to my cross stitch projects. So any information that is in here will get added to the project. So we were just looking at the Candy Claws project page, and you might remember that it said that it had 715 stitches completed, and you can see here that that actually was 2 different Stitchy sessions. So it's actually adding up every single Stitchy session that I log. It's adding all those numbers up together and saving it on that main project page, which is how I'm able to do all that fancy math to figure out how many stitches I have left to get to whatever percent. And then I also have on here like the roll up of the percent, so I can kind of see like immediately when I enter in how many, because when you type in the number, it immediately will show you or do the math. So I have that on there, so right when I type in the number as I'm entering in my log, it'll update that percent, and I can see how much progress I made at a quick glance. But yeah, so that's kind of the stitching tracker. I don't really think there's too much else to say about that. I do have, like, so then I guess we can look at the actual project card. Every entry that you make becomes its own page. So this is the page for this particular log. So I typically just name it the day that I log it. And then I also have a date field where, again, I put the date. It seems redundant, but they do serve different purposes. So you can't really skip one because you need to have a title for the page, and then you have to have the date in order to do all the fancy math and reporting. This is connected to cross stitch projects, so I literally can click on this. Oh wait, that's gonna open Candy Claws. Oops. So if I click this plus button, you can see that I can pick from any project that is in my cross stitch projects database. So that's how I select the project. I also have crochet knitting in here. Don't really use that, but it's here. And then I have really these first 4 are what I use the most. I was gonna start trying to use this to track when I posted to Instagram and filmed videos, but I just don't keep up with it. So I typically just stick to these 4 options, mainly these 3 options. I barely even use the FFO one, but if I were to spend the day fully finishing this project, then I would I would log this and mark it as an FFO. And then I have the number in here. So kind of to explain this roll up. So like if I did 41 stitches, you can see it bumped it up to 22.9, but I know I did 411. So it automatically changes the percentage so I can see in real time how much progress I made. And then of course I have the progress photo, which comes in really handy when I'm filming Floss Tube and I need to have a photo of what it looked like last time. I can just go in here, look at the date of when I last did an entry, and then when I'm filming my video, and kind of know which photo to download and put into my video. And then I don't put anything in the notes down here because there's really nothing to build on. So that is the stitching tracker. All right, these next two databases I am honestly so stoked about. I love them so much. So we'll do the DMC collection first. Now, this database is very special in the sense that it has every single DMC listed in here. I did not create this on my own. I did find the base of this template from Witchy Stitchy on Reddit, which I have linked in my little notes description up here. And then another thing that I used was my friend Brijin, the museum stitcher. She had like all the different photos that were the different hex codes for each of the DMC colors. And so she gladly shared that with me, and I was able to incorporate that into my database so that when I open my project card, it will show me a swatch of all the different colors that are called for in that pattern. And then I also used threadbare.com as a reference because when I was building my full set of DMC, there were definitely some that I came across that I hadn't heard of before. And so she's got a list on there of some DMC colors that have been retired and what colors replaced them. So it's just kind of a handy thing to reference. So the bulk of this, again, it's similar to the stitching tracker in the sense that I don't come here to browse very often, but it's more of a good place to search for information. So I can use this little magnifying glass on the side here to search for specific colors so I don't have to scroll through and find it. So if I wanted to search for, let's look for 956 because that's what I stitched with today on that ornament. And so it'll show me that immediately. It says I have 2 in my stash. So this field right here, location, would be what projects that this floss is in. And then I also have this other location, which is like my backup stash, which I have backup flosses in 2 locations. I have a bobbin box and I also have a floss bag. The floss bag has flosses that are like still on the skein and they've never been unwound or anything like that. And then the bobbin box they're on a bobbin, but they don't go in my main set yet because I already have a color in the main set. So since this says 2 here, I know that I have 1 in my main set and an extra in the bobbin box. Then there's a color description. This field is really handy. It is how this is connected to, so basically this database is connected to cross stitch projects in 2 ways. This location, which does not show up on the project card, and this one called used in, which does show up on the project card. So I think this actually should say that let me open the page here. Oh, that's the color. Eek. Okay, yeah, so it does. So earlier you saw me add Candy Claws or you saw me add 956 to Candy Claws. So I can see that Candy Claws uses this color. This is very helpful when you're kitting stuff up because as I'll show you on another tab, I can filter to just show me all the flosses that are used in this project, and then I can know how many I have and where they are. So I'll show you that in a moment. This is also connected to my Fancy Floss database. So if I was doing a color conversion and my chart called for 956, but I wanted to spice it up and use Fancy Floss, these are 2 options that I could replace 956 with. Cherry Vanilla by Weeks Dye Works and Peony by Weeks Dye Works. So I will get more into that and how that exists on the Fancy Floss database deep dive. And then again, color conversion was something I was playing around with, but it's not really something I'm ready to share yet. And then there's also a field to add to buy so that I can have a shopping list. If I'm running out of floss, I can note that I need to buy one of those. And the next time I'm at the craft store, I can pull this up and see which flosses I need to purchase. So that's kind of like what one, I guess, floss card looks like. And now I want to go into some of these tabs that I have and kind of how they're showing me specific information. So owned is not very different from this page that I'm on right now. It's just filtering for this owned column, and if it is not empty, then, or I guess if it's not empty, it will show it. If you didn't have a full set, that would be a better tab to look at, so you didn't have to look at everything, but I do have a full set, so it's not that different between that tab and all. Then I have the to buy tab, which is filtering for anything that has a number in the to buy column, which for me is DMC number 8. I have one of them, or no, yeah, I have one of them, but it's really not a full skein. It's really like a quarter of a skein. So I put that I needed to buy one on here so I can replenish that. Location is also a tab that I don't use very often, but right now it's just showing me that the location is not empty, so it's showing me stuff that is currently loaned out to a project. Again, I don't really look at this tab too often, but it could be helpful if you maybe wanted to look for a specific project. You could click contains, and then we could look at all the colors that are currently issued to Greenhouse of Oddities. So that's something that's kind of another way to search for flosses. This project DMC list is looking at which project uses certain floss. So currently Tint Maker Smalls is listed on here. So these are all the colors that are used in that project. And then this is showing me how many I have of each of those. And the location is empty, which means that it's in my main stash. However, I do have extra of 909 and 321, which are both in bobbin boxes. Now, let me think of one that well, I guess we can do one that has 310. Let's look at Greenhouse of Oddities, because I know Greenhouse of Oddities has 310. So, why is it only showing... Oh, because I haven't listed all the colors for Greenhouse. Let me do Deadly Aquarium. Okay, this is better. I just realized I didn't have all the DMC listed in the Greenhouse of Oddities project, so that wouldn't be super helpful. So anyway, I have filtered it. Well, now it is showing. Oh, it's showing both. You have to look at these things, okay? So anyway, I have it set to show me everything that is in the Deadly Aquarium project. So if I were to go kit Deadly Aquarium up, then I would see that I could see all the colors that are in that project, which is a lot, and then how many I have, and it's also showing me where that floss is. So I know that I only have one skein of 3857, and it's currently in Greenhouse of Oddities. So if I need that color, then I either need to take some from Greenhouse of Oddities or I need to buy another skein. So this is another good tool to use for kitting up a project so that you can help make yourself a list and not overbuy certain colors of floss. This color palettes is simply, I have it set to, yeah, so this is also another used in. So this is kind of also redundant because this came before I added it to the project page, but if I just want to see what the color palette is for a project, then I can go in here and select a project and it will show me all the DMC that are attached to that project. And then I also have this color families tab, which is basically just grouping everything by what color family I assigned it. So if I'm doing a conversion, I can kind of see what all the grays look like together, all the browns, etc. This is purely arbitrary. Like this also looks purple to me. If it's in the purple, this also looks orange. So like, it just depends on your personal taste, but that is in there. And if you want to change it, you totally can. And then the last one on here is how the DMC is related to the fancy floss, which again isn't something that I look at a lot, but it is kind of another cool view. So I know that 6 has like 1 substitute, fancy floss substitute, and you know, like this one, 152 has like 5 substitutes. And this is all just based on how these 2 databases are connected, which I think we can move on to now, because I think this wraps up the DMC collection. So let's go jump into the fancy floss. All right, so this is a database that I created myself with lots of love and care. This is the full set of Classic Colorworks, Weeks Dye Works, and Gentle Art sampler threads. I eventually want to add in my color and cotton stash into this database, but I haven't gotten around to doing that yet because it is quite a lot of work. So I am just going to open up a floss card for one of these. Let's do a fun color. Like, let's do this Amethyst by Classic Colorworks. So I'm going to open a full page. Okay, so this is the color card for Amethyst by Classic Colorworks. And this is all the information that every single one of these entries has. So I'll give you a good idea of what's going on here. So I have the name, and I also put like a abbreviation of what floss brand it is, so that when you're adding it on the project database, you don't have to just type, like because I know some of these flosses have like multiple brands will have the same name. So, you know, if you call it calls for, I think Amethyst is not a good example, but say there was an Amethyst, Classic Colorworks, and Weeks Dye Works. If I typed in Amethyst in my project database and I didn't know which one was Weeks and which one was Classic Colorworks, I would just have to guess. But since I added this dash CCW, or for Weeks Dye Works I put WDW, and then for Gentle Art sampler thread I put GAST, I can at a glance see what brand it belongs to. I also have this floss dyer, which does the same thing. And then I have the floss number, which is the like number associated with that floss. I have a photo of the floss, which you can see here. And then I also added a color family. And then I added in which DMCs are close to this color. Now, obviously, I do not have a full set of fancy floss because I ain't a fancy lady like that. All of this information came from, I believe, the Starlight Stitchery website, which I have linked on the main page. But basically, whatever floss they said matched the DMC, that's what I entered into here. Now, sometimes there would be a DMC where I don't know if it was a typo or what, but sometimes it just did not look like the color at all. Like it would be an orange floss and then the DMC that they said it was the same as was green. Then I was like, no. So I would delete that. But like some of these, you can see here that I think 333, based on this, does not really seem like it would be a good match for Amethyst, but you never can tell with the photos until you compare it in real life. So I left it there, and if you happen to have Amethyst in your stash, then you can obviously delete these DMC or add other DMC that you think match it more closely. And then this is probably my favorite. It's alternate fancy floss. So if a chart calls for Amethyst, but I'm trying to stitch from stash, and I know that Amethyst, basically this is comparing DMC. So if I don't have Amethyst and I still want to use a fancy floss, then I could use one of these other flosses. Now, obviously they're not going to be a 1-for-1 trade-off, but it at least will give you a jumping point to have something else to choose from. And basically it pulls these based on the DMC. So in this case, Amethyst looks like 3836, 333, and 210. So between all of the items in this list, they have something in common, whether they are also look like 210 also look like 333 or also look like 3836. Not necessarily that they match all three colors. So if I were to delete this one, 3836, let's remember that, you can see this list got shorter. So if I want to add that back, 3836, I'm going to add that back. You can see that the list gained a few more options. And again, this is some color conversion stuff we're not going to get into because it's just kind of a experiment. Used in is the same field like on the DMC collection. So if a project uses amethyst, then I can put that here. And then this is just a color list of, or it just shows you the swatches of everything in this alternate fancy floss. So I can see kind of all, and it also shows amethyst in here because it's obviously shares the same DMC conversion as itself. So this is kind of a good way to look at all your different options. And frankly, I don't think any of these would be a good replacement for amethyst because it is very different. But yeah, so anyway, that's kind of what each project card looks like. So I'm going to go back to the main database. Okay, you can see here that I added in the description where the link to the starlightstitch.com where I got the DMC conversions for all of these flosses. But essentially that's kind of the bulk of this database. So I do have color families listed for the fancy floss, and this is just showing all the different properties that we just went over. So then I also have a gallery which just breaks it down by the floss brand, so you can just see all the flosses. And then I have this gallery, which I haven't named these, probably should do that. And then this one I think is, yeah, so this is kind of the same thing that's inside one project page if you just wanted to see what a good substitute for a specific floss would be without pulling up that page, but not super, it's already built into the project page, so this isn't really too useful. But anyway, that is the fancy floss. I know that probably wasn't like a lot for me to say about it, but I spent so much time building this, and I really hope that it's a good tool to use for doing color conversions. I know that it's benefited me so far because I was able to create a color conversion for the Lizzie Kate Winter Smalls, which I think, I'll pull that up in a second. Let's see. Okay, so here's the project page for Winter Smalls, and I'm doing the winter pillow. So if I scroll down to the very bottom, I can see that these are the fancy flosses that are called for in this project. And I think I have it, yeah, I have it right here. So this is the project, and like I said, these are the fancy flosses that it called for. And I was able to have this up on my computer and then also go through my stash and pick out flosses from my stash that I thought was good substitutes for each of these fancy flosses that I don't already own. So obviously there's going to be a bit of a difference because you can't necessarily compare your real life fabrics and floss to just a picture, but it is a great tool to use as a jumping off point. All right, so the next database we're going to cover, this is also the last one, is the fabric stash. Now this is one that I'm still experimenting with, so it's not fully like built out or anything, but essentially the name of the project is the name of the fabric, like the colorway. And I'm just going to open this up so we can review the what is it called? Properties. So as you can see here, I added a photo of what the fabric looks like. Just added a random emoji that I feel like represents the name pretty well. I have the fabric dyer, which I just have a few in here that I have added on my own. The count, if it's linen, Aida, or Lugana. Just like a general color family, a photo. And then I have added the size of fabric that I have, and then whatever cross stitch projects that I've used that fabric in. And then I also just have a random note. So like this one, I used it for Citrus Biscornu, and when I cut that project out, The main large piece ended up being 20 by 18.5, but there was a tag sticking off of the fabric, which measured 9 by 4.5 inches. So the idea is that I should be able to go in here and see, without looking at my stash, if I have enough fabric. We all know the most fun part of cross stitch is touching all your things and seeing if it will work. But this is just kind of another way to track what you got going on. But if I click on the Citrus Biscornu, you will see that right underneath the fabric floss, where I typed out what I used, is also the relation to the fabric stash, and you can see it says winter woolens right there. So if I happen to use this fabric for another project, then I could see what all I stitched on that fabric, which could be really cool. But like I said, it's not something that I've been using pretty heavily, but it is something that I would like to build upon in the future. And then I don't have anything in the notes of this page. But I do have some, I basically added a few fabrics for the whips that I had been working on, but this is not built out. This is not on my fabric. It's just gonna take a lot of time and dedication to add all my fabric into here, which is the main reason why I haven't done it. All right, so I've been recording for 1 hour. I'm going to pause and take a little break, and then I will come back to explain a few more things, such as what a relation is and how to make one, how to create a linked view of a database, and then I'm also going to touch on graphs, and then I will show you how to download my template so that you can use it. All right, I am back. I just took a quick break to, I guess a bio break, went to the bathroom, got some water. I have been drinking water while filming, do not worry. But anyway, so if you didn't already take a break, go take a break, because I think this video is going to be probably my longest video yet. So anyway, I think this last half should go by a little bit quicker because there's not as much, well, actually, I'm not even going to lie, because I don't know how it's going to go. We'll see. So let's jump right back into Notion. All right, so we're back in Notion. I'm going to show you relations, how to make a link to view of a database, and graphs. So I want to show this to you in the template because I already have all those things in my database, so there's really nothing to add or show. So let's open up the template, which is right here. So I made this look just like mine. I copied it over and deleted whatever wasn't, I guess, my own stuff. So anyway, you also have a stitch log button, which does the same thing that mine does. All of these databases are empty, except for in the cross stitch projects. I did leave one project in there as an example, which is my very own Meet Me at Midnight pattern. So I did use this as kind of just like, I made up some stuff to put in here, just for, I guess, training purposes, if you will. So one thing before we get actually into the relations and whatnot, I do want to show you the Stitchy Calculator, which I have in the notes section over here. This is kind of a calculator that I created within Notion for a couple of common math things that you need to do when you're about to start a cross stitch project. The first thing being, how much fabric do you need to stitch your design? So this is just some basic math. So you type in the stitch, like these are number of stitches. So you type in the length and width. So this particular project, oh, you know what? I bet this was for Block Party Meow that I put this in. So Block Party Meow apparently is 34 stitches tall and 232 stitches wide. And I am going to stitch it on 28 count linen. If I was going to be stitching it over one, then I would want to select 28 count linen over one, but I am not doing that. I'm just doing it 2 over 2. So you have all these different options to pick from, which are, I think, covers most of it. Now, if you're doing 56 count or something like that, you're going to be on your own. You're going to have to make your own calculator. But this, I think, pretty much covers the standard stitcher. And then I want a 1.5 inch margin. And so these two numbers are what it spits out. So it says that I should get a piece that's almost 5.5 by basically 19.5. Now, if I were to stitch this on 32 count linen, you can see that I'm going to need a bit less fabric because there's more stitches per inch. And obviously if I wanted to have a 2-inch margin instead, you can see that it again changes these numbers. So the idea is that you fill out these first 4 fields, and then these 2 are your answer for how much fabric you should use. So that's the first calculator. The second calculator I basically have adapted from Lindy Stitch's website, which I have linked here in the note. She has I'll actually click on this and show it to you. All right, so this is on Lindy Stitch's website. She has this page called How Many Skeins of Floss Will I Need? And she explains kind of how she built this table. So she's got, 14 count Aida / 28 count linen, etc. and how many strands you're stitching with. And then these numbers are what she provides for how many stitches you can get per yard with stitching with that many strands on that count of fabric. And then she explains here the math that you need to do in order to figure out how many skeins you need. And this is where I kind of took the math part and put it into the Stitchy Calculator. So using these numbers that she provides in this chart, I created this calculator within my Notion. And so the same thing, you fill out these first 3 fields. So you're going to want to choose what kind of fabric you're stitching. And then for 36, there's a 2 strand and a 1 strand option. And then you have to know how many stitches that you are trying to stitch with that color. So, let's see. Well, it's okay. We can use this 2000 number. So if I need to stitch 2000 stitches of this color, and then the yards per skein is going to depend on what brand of floss you're using. So if you're using a skein of DMC, then it's going to be 8.7 yards. If you're using color and cotton, it says that it uses 8 yards. So you would just change this number based on how many yards your floss brand has. I know Weeks Dye Works and Classic Color Works, I think they do 5 yards per skein. So you'll just change that number based on whatever floss brand you're using. And then it's going to spit out this number of how many skeins you need. So if you want to stitch 2000 stitches, 2/2 on 28 count linen, or 2/1 on 14 count Aida, and you're stitching with DMC, then you're going to need just over 1 skein to be able to stitch those 2000 stitches. So that's kind of how this works. This is really helpful for full coverage, or not full coverage, sorry, monochromatic. So if you're stitching a huge sampler that's all in one color, this is a great tool to use so that you know how many skeins you need to buy of whatever overdyed floss you're using so that you can avoid any changes in dye lot and you can just buy all of your floss at once. So that's just kind of a brief explanation of the Stitchy Calculator note page. So back to the template. Again, it looks just like mine. It's taking a while to load. Okay, here we go. So I did delete the the crochet and knitting database. That's up to you. You can make your own if you want to track that stuff. But I have a field here where you can add in your own to-do list. The Stitchy Notes is just a blank notes page, so you can dump whatever information you want to in there. I do have my links this is a DMC color card, and then I have my YouTube, Instagram, Buy Me a Coffee, Linktree, and Ravelry all linked here in case you want to check any of that out. Have active whips on the left. Now the charts and graphs section is empty because since this is my Notion, I can only use 1 chart. So there's no chart for me to add in here for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. But I will show you how to make a chart in just a moment. You can also use Chartbase. I won't explain how to use Chartbase just because I feel like that's outside the scope of this video, but I will show you how to make a chart within Notion. And then down here is where we will put our linked views of databases. So first, before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to explain what a relation is and how to make a relation, just in case you find a new purpose or a new need for a tool and you want to make a database and have it relate to something else. So I'm going to go up here to the cross-stitch projects database because it is not connected to the Fabric Stash database yet. So I'm going to open this one and only project that I have going on in here. And as you can see here, it has basically all the same fields as mine that I went over with you earlier. And then at the very bottom here is where I have all the databases that are related to each other. So the DMC Collection, Fancy Floss, and the Stitching Tracker are already connected for you. However, I'm going to show you, well, I guess when you download this template, the fabric one will be connected because I'm showing you right now. So all I have to do is click Add a Property. And I want this to be a relation. So I'm just going to type in relation rather than searching for it in the list. And I want this to be related to the Fabric Stash. So again, there's so many databases that I have. I'm just going to type in what I'm looking for. I gotta be more specific than that. Okay, here we go. So as you can see here, there's two listed. That's just because one is mine and one is the template. So I'm going to click on this one because this is part of the template. And then I don't want there to be any limit. I can add as many pieces of fabric as I want. Or I could add as many cross-stitch projects to that fabric as I want. But I do want to turn on this part that says to-a relation. That way, it's going to create a property on my Fabric Stash database that will show me the project that I have connected to it. So I'm going to turn that on. And then I can name it in, this is the name that it will show up in my Fabric Stash. So I just want it to be the same as this cross-stitch project. So I think if I just don't type anything here, it's going to put what this grayed out field is. I guess we can test that out together. So I'm going to click Add Relation. And, oh wait, it says just related to fabric. Oh no, wait, that's right. Okay, because we're currently in the cross-stitch projects. So now we're good there. Now I don't think there's any Fabric Stash in there yet. So yeah, there's nothing there. So I'm actually going to go to the Fabric Stash database. How do I do it? Can I click on that one? Okay, so here's what the Fabric Stash database looks like. There's nothing in here. So I'm actually going to add something new. I know that this particular fabric was called a long time ago. And it was dyed by Fortnite Fabrics, so we'll add that. And I'm just going to click this Create Fortnite Fabric since it's one I haven't chosen before. And I know that this was a 28 count Lugana. And it's purple. If I had a photo of just the fabric, I would add this here. I don't have any more of this in my stash, so I'm just going to leave the length and width blank. And I'm not going to add any notes. So I can actually go ahead, you can see that cross stitch project showed up here. So I can actually click on this and add Meet Me at Midnight. Or if I go back to my cross stitch projects database and I click on Meet Me at Midnight, I can go down here to the Fabric Stash and I can click a long time ago. And now they're connected to each other. So if I go to Fabric Stash, sorry for all the back and forth, you can see here on the side that it uses Meet Me at Midnight. Or I'm sorry, that Meet Me at Midnight uses this fabric. So anyway, that is kind of how you create a relation and kind of what it looks like. And we can add a cute little heart emoji just to make this look cute. So yeah, that's how you create a relation. All right, the next thing I want to cover is a linked view of database. This is probably the best part of Notion because it lets you manipulate how you're viewing all of your information so that you can get what you want out of it. So down here, I have this Stitchy Goals priority list and 2024 plans. So I know for 2024 plans, I want to look at my cross-stitch projects database and I want to have a tab that shows me what I want to start this year and what I want to finish this year and then maybe a list of just all the projects I can choose from. So I'm gonna go in here, and when you are creating a new line in a page, if you click the slash button, it's gonna show up all the different block options. And one of the blocked options is called linked view of a database. So I just start typing that, and then it'll show up, and I can click on it here. And you can see I've got a blank table, and it's showing me the different databases that I can choose from to show me information. So I want to look at stuff from cross-stitch projects, so I'm going to click on that. And then I want, now this is also interesting, it will let me copy a view that already exists within cross-stitch projects, which is pretty nice, except for I don't really want any of these views, but I do want it to look similar to probably the whips, because I want to see the project cards. So I'm going to click on whips. Now, I don't want it to be this exact view because I want it to show me stuff that I want to start this year or stuff I want to finish this year. So for this one, I'm actually going to call start this year, just like the one I showed you earlier for mine. These are where I can choose which properties I want it to show. I think these are good properties, but I also want to let it pick, I want to be able to see the checkbox for finish this year, and I want to be able to see the checkbox for start this year. And I also want to make sure that start this year shows up on top. I don't really think we need to know the size of the project, and I don't think we need to know the start date. But maybe we want to see the status. So we'll show that and maybe move that up here. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm not sure if it's exactly what mine is, but this is how you can manipulate what properties are being shown on the project card. Now, the other thing I want to fix is this group. I don't want to group any of this stuff by anything, so I'm just going to go to group by and say none. Then what else do I want to do? I want to add a filter. So before I add the filter though, I actually want to check both of these boxes so that something shows up for this example. So if I click filter, I want to filter by start this year, and I want to look at stuff that's checked. So if I have that box checked on any of my projects, it's going to show up in this view. Now, I want to do this exact same thing, but I want it to be stuff that I want to finish this year. So all I have to do is right-click, start this year, like the tab, and then I can duplicate this view. And I'm going to rename it finish this year and get rid of this one on the end. But this time, I don't want it to show me start this year checked. I want it to show me finish this year checked. So I'm actually going to in order to delete this, I have to click the arrow here and then click this little dot, 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 and then click delete filter. And then I'm going to add a new filter. And then I'm going to select finish this year, and then it's checked. And then that will show me any projects that I have checked that box for. So this will be able to show me like a view of projects that I intend to finish this year. This tab will show me a list of projects I intend to start this year. And then just so I can easily access all the different projects so I can decide whether or not to check it, yes, or start or finish, I'm going to add another view, and I'm going to add a table view. And I want to link a database. I'm going to do the cross-stitch projects. And then this is where I can kind of adjust what is showing up on here. So I don't need it to show, oh, I wanted to do that. Here we go. Oh, it wants me to, so I'm gonna select all, because if I don't want to pick a view that already exists, I can click new table view, but I'll just click all because that's kind of similar to what I'm trying to get at. But I don't need to see all these properties because that's just too much information. So I'm actually gonna hide everything. And let's see, I want to see the designer, I want to see the status, I want to see, let's see, maybe percent complete, and then I want to see start this year, and I want to see finish this year. And I think that might be all. If you want to look at more stuff, you can click the little eye, and if I have something here that you don't want to see, you can just click the eye and it'll go away. So, but this looks good to me. So I'm gonna X out of that. And now if I decide to, oh, you know what, I already started this project this year, so I can't start it again. So I'm gonna uncheck that box. If I go to start this year, there's nothing there because I don't have any projects in my database that have that box checked. But it's still showing up on finish this year because I do want to finish it this year. So that's kind of how, and since this is all for, okay, yeah, that's for 2024 plans. That is how you make a linked view of a database. We can do the same thing for the stitching goals priority list. I'm gonna actually add it down here and then move it. So I'm gonna do a linked view of a database. And I want it to be cross stitch projects. And I want it to look like, I'm gonna put all, and then we will customize that in a second. I'm actually gonna, so if you see these 6 dots on the side, that's how you move stuff around. So I'm actually gonna move this, and I want it to be right underneath where I have stitching goals priority list. And then I want to mainly just show projects that how many stitches I need left to finish the project. So I'm gonna go in here to the ... That's how I edit my view. Go to properties, I'm gonna hide everything, and I'm going to check the stuff I wanna see. So designer, status, we can put the start and finish date, that's fine. And then I'm gonna put % complete, and I wanna see maybe my current goal, and goal stitches, and then maybe I also want to see a 100% countdown, which is going to be how many stitches left to finish the project. And so now I have all these properties that I'm able to view. So obviously this would look different if I had a long list of projects I had going on, but I just have the one example in here. So I can rearrange this if I want. So, you know, if I don't really care about the start and finish date, but it's nice to have on here, then I could just move this to the end by clicking and dragging it to wherever I want to put it. And that's kind of the gist of how you create a linked view of a database. So let's see. We talked about relations, we talked about no, we haven't talked about graphs yet. We talked about relations and linked view of database. Let's talk about graphs. Okay, so first off, just to show you how to add a graph, you would do the same thing for the linked view of a database, but there are different types of views you can have. So let's just select cross stitch projects again. And then if we click, I think, yeah, we can do new table view. Yeah, okay, so now this is letting us choose the different options. So for like the gallery shows you the little project cards, table just shows you like a basic Excel table format. So if you want a graph, you would just click on chart, and then you would be able to change up all the different stuff. Now, like I said, I do not pay for Notion, so I only get one chart. So I can't click chart here, otherwise it'll be like, you only get one chart, and freak out on me. So I'm gonna click the X here, and I'm gonna go back to my database where my chart is, so I can show you the different features of the chart. All right, so this is my chart. I have it set to be, I think, what is this? What do they call this? They call this a donut chart. Okay, so this graph is, the source of this graph is coming from Stitching Tracker, which is where all of the logs I enter every day when I stitch, that's where they live in that database. So that's where this information is being pulled from. Now, if you remember, Stitching Tracker is connected to cross stitch projects. So inside each entry on the Stitching Tracker, it lets me choose which project I worked on. And so that becomes a data point that I can choose to show. So I click, so these are all the different properties that are in my Stitching Tracker database. So for this, I want it broken down by the project. So I clicked cross stitch projects. And then I wanted each slice to represent the number of stitches that I did, and I wanted it to add them all up for every entry that I entered for that project. And then I wanted it to sort by high to low. I guess if I do low to high, it'll swap it so that the most I've stitched will be on the other side. But you could also sort it by projects A to Z. That looks so chaotic and it's not helpful to me at all. So that's why I have it set. You could do some high to low or low to high. That would be pretty similar. You can also change the color scheme. You know, it's just cute. And then there's some more style options. You can select to show the total number in the center. You can have it color by value, so it makes it more of a gradient. And then you can turn on legend, which for me is not useful because I have the data labels turned on. And I wanted it to show me the name and the percentage. So because of that, it is showing me that Deadly Aquarium was my most stitched on project this year at a whopping 18,622 stitches, which was 23.7% of my total stitches for this year. So that's kind of how to read this chart. Now, if I wanted this to be a bar chart and I wanted it to show me my stitches per month, then I can do that as well. I would just change the chart type to a vertical bar. I would want it to show me the number of, I want it to show me the date by the month. And then I want it to, oldest to new is fine. And then I want it to show stitches, the sum. And now it's gonna calculate, So this is how many stitches I did. So I did 3,007 stitches in January, 4,687 in February, and so on. So you can see kind of like as the months have progressed throughout 2024, kind of what my general stitching pattern was like. And as you can see, I don't know what I was doing in March, but June was StitchCon, so I got a lot of stitching done that month. But yeah, so that's kind of how you can change up your graphs to show you whatever you want, whatever you're interested in looking at. And I think that's pretty much the gist of how to do graphs. Like I said, you can use Chartbase. It's an external chart making service where you link it to your Notion, but I'm not going to get into how to do that. You can do some individual research on that one. All right, and I think the final thing for me to share with you is how to save this template so that you can start using it if you are interested. So let me get that set up. All right, so I'm gonna have a link in the description box to this template. And if you click that link, it should show you a page that looks like this. And if you want to save this Notion into your own so that you can add your own projects and whatnot, then all you have to do is click this little double box in the top right corner. And if you hover over it, it will say duplicate. So if you click that button, then it's going to open up your Notion account. And then it's gonna have a pop-up window here. My computer's really slow because it's old. Okay, and then it's gonna ask you where you wanna add this template. And so you would just select your workspace. I'm not gonna add it because I already have it. I don't need to do that. So I'm just gonna click the X. And then I'll have to check later and make sure that I didn't mess anything up. Oh no, it didn't add it. Okay. So anyway, that's how you add a template to your database, to your Notion. Now, if you already track your stuff in Notion, but you think it's really cool that I have the DMC and the Fancy Floss connected to each other and you just want to download that part, I do have a separate link for you that will also be in the description box. And this is simply going to be just the DMC and Fancy Floss databases. So you don't have to download the entire template with the stitching tracker and the cross stitch projects and all of that. You can just download the floss part of it. And so it's basically just a note page that houses those two databases and they are related to each other. So if you want to connect your project database to this, you're going to have to create your own relation. And if you don't want to track your projects, but you do want to track your floss and use this for making your own conversions and whatnot, then obviously you can just use this on its own without connecting it to anything else. So this will also be linked in the description box and you save it the same way. When you click the link, there's gonna be a box in the corner that has those two boxes and it says duplicate, and then it will take you to your Notion where you can save it. Hello, it's Editing Elizabeth here. I just wanted to add a quick side note. When you are downloading this template, there is a lot of information in both the Cross Stitch Planner and the Floss databases. So if you click duplicate and it doesn't show up right away, just be patient and give it a few minutes and it should pop up on your Notion. It just takes a while to load the information and it doesn't really give you a visual on like the loading of that database. So like I said, if it doesn't show up right away, just wait a second, wait a few minutes, and it should pop up. So that's kind of the gist of how to get your hands on this template. All right, so that is what I have for you for my Notion tour. It's gonna be so interesting to edit this video and see how long it ends up being, and because I know there were some times where I took some water breaks and whatnot, so, but I think generally it's gonna be my longest video ever. So, if you made it this far, I'm so proud of you. And I'm thankful that you like me enough to want to listen to me ramble about Notion for almost an hour and a half. So anyway, I will have these databases linked in the description box below. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video, but if you do have any problems with the Notion database or saving it to your computer, I would just suggest Googling how to do whatever and then put Notion on it. There are a lot of great resources online that are not this video that can help you figure out and troubleshoot some of your problems. Now, if there's something in the database where something isn't connected or you're having trouble with the actual database itself, feel free to leave a comment and I can try to help you out. But if it's an issue with your computer or saving the database to your Notion, I recommend doing your own troubleshooting because I am not here to be tech support. So that's my little disclaimer with that. But yeah, I've been talking for so long now, I need to go rest my vocal cords and drink some water, take a break. But anyway, I hope you've had a great time learning all about my Notion, and comment down below and let me know if you track your projects digitally, or if you don't, if you want to give it a try. I love cross stitch, but I also love like numbers and being really geeky about my goals, and this is just kind of the best of both worlds for me. So I get really dedicated and kind of deep down the rabbit hole for it. So anyway, that's all I've got for you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, whatever you're up to, and I will catch you in my next FlossTube video. Bye!